Thank you, Carol. Hi, everyone. As you can see, I have a different setup today, but still, I'm the same um, host and moderator of VCTV, the Venture Capital TV from LATOKEN, Sunny Mohanty, Regional Director of LATOKEN here in Singapore. Welcome to another episode, another session of VCTV. Today's topic is about investments, venture investments into investment space and sustainable investments. It's a very, very known topic, but during this time of crisis, it has gained more momentum as we speak. Hence, the speakers we have are from the space to enlighten us what's happening in the space right now during the pandemic, especially during this time. So we have speakers from Dubai, from Hong Kong, and from India, ranging from law to NGO to VCs. So yes, there you go. Please sit tight and watch us live as we move to the speakers to share the insights. First, I'd like to go with Hong Kong with our new speakers who've just joined us for the first time. Doug. Hi, Doug. How are you?
How are you, Sunny? Nice to see you tonight.
Great. Same here, Doug. Please start with a short intro about yourself and what you do in the space, which company you represent, and we go from there. Thank you.
Right. So my name is Doug Woodring. I am the founder and managing director of Ocean Recovery Alliance. So as you might guess, it's about protecting the ocean. We're based here in Hong Kong, but we do global work. I've been running this for over 10 years. I have worked in Asia for over 25 years. And I used to be in the asset management business. In fact, when I was with Merrill many years ago at the first period, I created a framework for a global environmental technology fund for them. And the whole point then was to use technology to fix the world's pollution problems. That was a little bit early on the topic. 20 years later now, the world is interested in this space a lot more because people want purposeful investments that make an impact for the community. And the trick is getting the blend from the bankers and the investment world to the projects and the assets that can really make that kind of difference. So we're happy to be here tonight. We do work with the UN and the World Bank, and in some of the territories that we have speakers in tonight. So it'll be a good discussion.
Great, fantastic. Thank you, Doug, for that intro. Next, I'd like to move to Julia. Hi, Julia. Welcome to VCTV. How are you today?
Great, thanks, Sunny. Lovely to see you. So I'm a lawyer in Hong Kong, and I focus on all kinds of investing, actually, both on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and on funds, investment funds, and some of them are social impact investment funds, particularly some I've been working on in Myanmar recently. I'm also working on a project at the moment to put together a book for the Hong Kong Stock Exchange about corporate governance and ESG impact for newly listed companies, because they struggle with it quite a lot sometimes when they first list on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So I'm interested in this space from a range of standpoints, both from startups, NGOs. We actually, as a pro bono practice, set up charities and NGOs free of charge for worthwhile projects. There's one in North Korea, there's one in remote part of China, there's several in Myanmar, quite a few in Hong Kong as well. So they deal with a range of issues. But we also look at the corporate governance and ESG issues of listed companies as well.
Excellent. Wow, that's a quite range of countries that you cover. Thank you, Julia, for that. I would come back to you with more details. Next, I'd like to go for our speaker from Dubai, who is originally from Egypt and studied in the US. Hi, Amal. How are you? Welcome to VCTV.
I'm good. Hi, Sunny. Hi, everyone. To give you a brief background, I started my career in investment banking, but always had an itch for development. So I studied environmental development at the London School of Economics and joined the IFC afterwards, which obviously is a private arm of the World Bank. So we did a lot of development financing for infrastructure projects in the Middle East. At the time, impact investing was still information or gaining popularity, but slowly as it was being defined. I worked in public policy for a while and went to business school. Afterwards, I joined what was my first real impact investing sort of mandate. It was the Egyptian American Enterprise Fund, which is a fund seeded by the US government to invest in private sector development in Egypt post the revolutions in Egypt. And so this was a chance to really deploy public capital into private sector development and use that as a catalyst to attract other sources of investments into, all things that increase the access and affordability of services and products available in the country through the private sector. And I recently made the switch to VC after moving to Egypt, where I really think, just the potential for technology and innovation to leapfrog solutions and deliver, huge impact through youth innovation. And so this is currently my focus. I work with Global Ventures on financing and investing in young entrepreneurs with tech ideas that are reshaping the region and reshaping how we solve for problems here.
Great. Amal, I have to say, this is the first time I'm having someone from Egypt on my panel. So I'm very excited to hear about your insights.
That's impact already, yes.
There you go. Thank you. Rightly said. Okay, so we have another new speaker on the panel, which just joined us now, Manish. Hi, Manish. How are you? Hi, welcome to VCTV.
Yes, sir. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sunny. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I have been in one session earlier for LATOKEN, but it was on a different topic, and good to be here. So for the last 7 years, I have been involved in multiple structures of investments. And now I am the managing director of a firm called Provenio Capital Group. We invest across sectors. For impact, we have our prop fund where we look to invest in some of the SDG inspired goals. So typically 4 SDGs are what we are following up on. One is the no poverty, then zero hunger. Third is on clean water and water management. And fourth is on rural economy and the food preservation. And this is where we invest, and this is where we plan to invest. It will be sort of CSR and other pooled investments that will go in. We are looking at allocating close to $1 billion over the next 10 years till 2030 to fulfill as much as possible these SDGs for the Indian landscape.
Excellent, Manish. Oh, welcome. I mean, good to know that you've been on our panel. So where are you dialing in from today? Which state in India?
I reside in Bangalore, India. It's in the south of India. Even though I'm originally from north of India, I'm born and brought up in Delhi. Now for the last 20 years, I've been residing in Bangalore. Welcome,
Manish. Welcome to VCTV. My last speaker, but not the least, very regular speaker, a good friend of mine, I can say that, Natasha from Delhi.
Hey, Sunny, it's always a pleasure to be a part of your webinars and engage in some really insightful discussions on the way forward and opportunities in the VC landscape, which we foresee over here. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I am the co-founder and managing partner of Venture Gurukul Capability Fund. It's a SEBI-registered Category 1 fund focused on doing early-stage investments in India. While we are early-stage investors, we are heavily sector agnostic, but we look at ventures which are looking to digitally disrupt or bring about a digital transformation of day-to-day transactions of consumers and businesses through your tech platform, may it be an app or a SaaS or any other thing. So that's one prerequisite which we look at. And we typically come in at pre-Series A or Series A round, where the founder has achieved or shown validated a product market fit. And ideally, as we call ourselves a capability fund, our expertise lies in helping these tech founders build the organization structure which will help them scale seamlessly and sensibly, which has become the need of the hour. If you look at the pandemic right now, where everyone has focused quite a bit on handling their operations, things like your cost and how you're managing your unit economics becomes increasingly important. So that's where we bring our expertise with our venture partners who provide complete hands-on support to the founders in terms of putting the right processes in place which will help them scale seamlessly. And talking about today's discussion, which is on impact investment, I myself, I have a background in finance. And like most millennials, we always want to bring a change in the world in a positive form, in one form or the other. So I was quite intrigued with the current climatic situation which we are facing right now in terms of global warming. And one of the majors which I did from a master's perspective was on energy and resources. For the longest time, I have been focused towards looking at investments in solar and new energy generation technology made with geothermal or other in Australia and in India. Been an avid propagator of the carbon emission scheme. So I think pre-Kyoto 2012, we had something called a carbon trading scheme across the world, where developed countries used to buy credits from developing countries for reduction in carbon units. I used to do that trading quite a bit. But I think it was more financial rather than really making a meaningful impact in terms of emission reductions. So it was more a money-making mechanism. And nevertheless, since finance has been something which I was always keen towards, I was focused on, I had my own venture, startup venture, which did very well. And then I've been focusing towards venture capital investments, starting with our own proprietary investments. And now we have a venture capital fund to look on the same things. So coming again to impact investments, BG Capability Fund, we integrate ESG processes in our investment process. And that's something which ESG reporting is something which we do at a portfolio level to our limited partners. And that's how I look forward to being a part of this panel discussion.
Excellent. Good to know about your journey from trading to venture.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Great. Now that we had a first round of introduction, we are like warmed up and all set. I would like to start with some questions. And I would like to start with Doug first, because he and I were having conversation before we went live, and Doug has a lot of insights to share. Doug, can you please tell us about the recent trends in the area post pandemic? What's happening? What are the challenges? What are the that you see in the space, and what kind of investments are getting done right now? Doug, over to you.
Well, I'm not sure if we're out of the woods yet in terms of this pandemic. So the challenge is, one of the things that I didn't mention is a lot of what we focus on is plastic. And plastic pollution impacts many things across the ecosystem. In fact, in per day than climate change does. Over 2 billion people are impacted from bad water quality, which is bad for your health, bad for tourism, bad for fishing, bad for agriculture. And it's something that we could all solve, but the systems are not there. So if you look at many of the world's environmental problems today, probably one of the least invested in and least entrepreneured is the waste management sector. That's for a variety of reasons. Certainly one is because it's not a sexy area. It's a smelly space. There's not a lot of Elon Musks running around making these new machines that can go everywhere. But when you think about solar and wind, that's all distributed power, which is installed where there is wind or solar. And it's exactly the same issue. You have to go where the waste is. And unfortunately, that's everywhere. And what it means is you can't just put in a few big machines and expect that a few machines in Indonesia or India are going to solve those countries' problems. We need scaled, much smaller, medium-sized machines that are going to go into communities and villages even that can get value-added capacity to get this waste into this recycling stream or the energy stream, if you're doing waste to fuel, into the market. And the problem is there's none of this infrastructure pretty much globally today. China banned the import of recycled plastic 2 years ago. That basically put everyone's plastic waste on their front doorstep because now they can't export it to other countries. And it's locking that asset, which is the commodity of plastic material, in their own country. And not many have the facilities and the infrastructure now to process it themselves. So with COVID coming, the waste streams are becoming now a topical discussion, because at the beginning, everyone wanted to make sure they're healthy, use as many masks as you can, and disposable items, and take away food containers. Now on the back end, we're seeing that literally there are billions of masks being used every single day, and the packages they go in, and the food containers that are shipped around. And so there's going to be a lot of opportunities here in either correcting the inventory of the stuff that's gone out, or working with companies on the reverse supply chain and figuring out how to get visible materials to the consumers, how to get the material back from the consumers, how to get it back from the other businesses. And I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things coming out of this experience, because at least people are now a little bit more grounded in their own community, their own environment. They realize that the earth has probably gone too far in terms of resource use. And a lot of corporates are now trying to figure out how they're going to come out of this experience 2 or 3 or 4 steps ahead of when they went into it, which means they have to be engaged. They have to invest in programs that really make a difference in the community and make an impact. And they have to work with their employees and the customers, community they serve. So I think it's a lot of interesting opportunities are going to come out of this, but it's still a long way to go. Waste management and recycling, I would argue, is one area that we all need to make some help in and some investments in.
Right. So do you think that COVID, because of the pandemic, the things have actually worked in the benefit, like it's been accelerated, the pace has gone up?
I don't think it's started yet, because a lot of the supply chains are still sometimes broken. It's very hard, we can't have meetings. It's hard to make things move fast still. Mm-hmm. You can't do the control checks as you did before. You can't meet the buyers. You can't make these new programs that might fix things. But I know there's focus on trying to figure out how this might happen once the borders open up a little bit better and we can start to do that.
Right. Great. Thank you, Doug, for those insights. Let's move to Julia. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Same question. The trends, challenges, and investments into the space that you'd like to share insights with us.
Sure. Well, I think we're going through a very difficult time, and I don't see it really recovering. I see a lot of delays in investment at the moment. I see a lot of people waiting and seeing for going ahead. Of course, in Hong Kong, the markets are generally quite buoyant because we have mainland companies which are listed in the US coming back to Hong Kong to list. We've also got a lot of activity in China. Anecdotally, I can't go there right now because of the quarantine. I have offices there, but I'm hearing that everything's really pretty much back to normal in Hangzhou. Some businesses are doing extremely well, like the technology businesses, and some of them are looking for opportunities. I know that they're actually looking for buying opportunities in Myanmar, for example. But at the other end of the spectrum, for example, in Myanmar, they're just going down into a second lockdown for COVID. There's been issues this year, extremely worrying about food security, about people not being able to even have enough to eat, or the farmers having enough to plant. So, for example, a project which I'm very familiar with, which is a silk growing project, which is very much a social impact project in Myanmar, that was actually set up to create job opportunities for women, mainly women agricultural workers. It had a number of wonderful things about it. Apparently, the silk industry in Myanmar had pretty much fallen away. It had been quite buoyant up to the 80s, but because of political discontent and unrest and so on, and the fact that people were short of food and had to move back to growing food crops, that had all fallen away. So really the whole industry really fell away. And somebody called Catherine Smith has been working on a whole project for the last 3 years called Pochi. And they've trained about over 300 women farmers. They've actually bought the mulberry bushes and so on. They've planted. They will actually be harvesting in this October. They're looking at weaving, which is a traditional skill in Myanmar, but they've been short of the silk to weave with. So when tourism eventually comes back, then that, of course, will be a great source of income for many of these women, which is very wonderful because they don't have to rely on borrowing or microfinance necessarily. They can actually sell their crops. Now then, what's going to happen without tourism? Well, they're very enterprising. They're already making masks, and you can have wonderful Myanmar silk masks made, which are embroidered and so on. So that's the business which they're really going into, selling domestically and exporting a bit to some extent. But obviously, there's this massive market for masks at the moment. So that's the main kind of thing I'm seeing. I'm also seeing in Hong Kong more investment into education tech, agri-tech in other places, but rooted through Hong Kong. And of course, medicine, all kinds of apps and so on, which are diagnostic, and also the development of medicine and so on. So there's been such a shift actually into pharma and biotech and that kind of med tech. I see that enormously in Hong Kong. So that's generally what I think's been going on, but it's a very, very difficult time. And of course, in the back of everyone's minds, we have the specter of social unrest in some parts of the world because of the exacerbation of this extreme wealth inequalities, which are brought about by COVID. And of course, social impact investing, the purpose of that through investing in SMEs in particular is to actually drive profit, create jobs and improve people's lives, which would mitigate that to some extent.
I think, Julia, you've just touched upon, very good points there. And I agree about the social impact as well. Talking about Myanmar, how do I get access to those silk masks that you just spoke about?
They have a website, which is pochi.org, and I'm happy to share that with everybody. And they have fabulous products, and it is such a worthwhile venture. I also have a PowerPoint on the whole thing if anybody's interested. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll get that from you later.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julia. So next, I'd like to move to Dubai. Amal, who is residing in Dubai right now, originally from Egypt, to know her insights about the current investments that she's done in the last 3 to 6 months in the space.
I kind of, basically agree with everyone. It's been a difficult environment. We've had, a few months of, well, maybe it didn't take a few months, maybe a few weeks of trying to see what this new reality looks like. And obviously we're not arriving at a new reality anytime soon. It's it's a fluid situation. It's in flux. This is, uncharted territory. We don't know what we're dealing with, how long this will last, the real impact and the consequences, how long and when they will kick in. And so as venture capitalists, it's, you learn to deal with uncertainty, and it's about identifying risk, mitigating risk. We're in the business of taking risk but managing it. And that was our focus, because this was a great opportunity where we had a lot of our existing portfolio companies seen a lot of growth because of the accelerated need for their products and services. One of the examples that I was surprised at was just, we talk a lot about this shifting consumer behavior when everyone was stuck at home, and all of a sudden you're, relying more on ordering your groceries online. And there was a lot of resistance in the Middle East, especially in Egypt, where there's very low credit card penetration for people to put their credit cards on the apps and instead of cash on delivery. And all of a sudden there's a switch. People are just using their credit cards to using more fintech products. And these behaviors were sticky, so they're here to stay. Similarly in healthcare, the reliance on telemedicine and teleconsultations. People don't want to go into a hospital. They don't want to go for a doctor's visit. They'd rather have a phone call. And so we picked up on a lot of those behaviors that we believe are here to stay. And we've seen, again, youth are very driven, innovative, but they are also hustlers who are grasping the opportunity and running with it. And I think that is something that gives me a lot of fulfillment in my work, just supporting and thriving off of their energy. I'm like, you are go-getters. I am not like you, but I'm happy to invest in you and just be there for the ride and for the journey. So over the past period, we did not stop investing. In fact, we've increased our exposure to fintech. Financial inclusion continues to be something of paramount importance in the Middle East, where there is, there is a highly unbanked population in Egypt. Less than 30% of the population have a bank account, and this is a country of 100 million people. And we all know the statistics on the importance of banking and access to financial services, access to capital, and how this is a catalyst for economic growth and just social well-being. So we recently invested in a company called PayMob in Egypt, which focuses on electronic payments, because it's very there's a great disconnect between smartphone penetration and mobile penetration, internet penetration in Egypt, as opposed to access to financial services and digital payments. So when you make that link between digital payments and the e-commerce, then you're unlocking a lot of value, and people can really start to get the full benefits of utilizing e-commerce and utilizing digital services. Similarly, as a firm, we've increased our focus on digital health, and this came with going more deep with our knowledge on the healthcare sector in the Middle East, understanding the vulnerabilities that were exposed to COVID, but also the opportunities that got accelerated because of COVID. So things like digital diagnostics, digital teleconsultations, and so on, where we think the consumer behavior has shifted, is here to stay, it's sticky, and really high impact. So again, back to the SDGs, how access to healthcare and affordability of healthcare are so important. This is something we increasingly increase our attention to. As Julia was mentioning, we're seeing a lot of opportunities in edtech and agri-tech. Again, the vulnerabilities in our educational system. Like there is not a day has gone by in this, especially this week, where we did not talk about how are we solving for schools. How are parents going to pick up? Are you going to back to school? Are you not? The hybrid model, the not hybrid model, are the kids going to wear a mask, not wear a mask? So edutech is really, changing the shape of how we're going to solve for a lot of these problems. And we've been, again, increasing our attention on edtech, similarly agri-tech, where the vulnerabilities in food security and the unsustainability of the existing infrastructure became more clear. And again, technology is another avenue where we're seeing a lot of innovation, a lot of problem solving for the existing norm is not good enough. Who's solving for that? Who can we back that's going to do well, not because it'll be just great returns, but it is really impact that is important to our region. And I really believe that the Middle East as a region's well-being is good for the entire world.
Thank you, Mal. I really like the way you started. We haven't stopped investing during this time. It's difficult times, I know that, but you haven't stopped investing. That's a good one. That's a good point. So you mentioned about the recent investment in the fintech company that you did. Was it your current, was it a new seed round, early stage, or what stage of?
It was a Series A round. I really liked those kids, quite literally. So they're around, they're less than 30 years old, they're around, 25 to 28-year-olds. And I mentioned their age because banking in Egypt is such a, similar to other parts of the world, such a traditional industry. And so when this company started, and they started around 4 years ago, mid 2015, 2016, and no one took them seriously. A bunch of kids going around trying to get their banks to try their products. They wanted to do mobile wallets, and the banks were like, who are you? Just a bunch of techies, who think they have a solution to something that we know we don't need. But they've increased they managed to build their infrastructure. They went through the merchants. They had, they set up their POSs and got the approvals. And it was a really, uphill battle. I love their tenacity, their perseverance. Yes, they're, you would think they're just a bunch of geeks who can only code and, build a product, but it requires much more character to withstand all the rejections, every bank saying, no, 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 we don't want to deal with you. And we just raised our Series A. It was Global Ventures together with FMO out of the Netherlands. So partnering with the Development Financial Institution, we see the impact in financial inclusion and how it is so important for the well-being of Egyptians from an economic activity, having merchants, having access to POSs, and customers being able to pay online.
Right, great. So you only invest in a company incorporated out of Dubai, Middle East, or other regions as well?
So we started out because the firm is based in Dubai, and we started out investing in our own region because we're on the ground. These are kind of markets that we understand and know very well. I think there are a lot of lessons learned and shared across emerging markets. Really market solving for very similar problems. Like we learn a lot from India, what is working there. Like I was looking at e-pharma and how it's grown so much in India. It's growing similar. We're seeing similar patterns here in Egypt, and so there's a lot of learning across emerging markets, and we've expanded our footprint in Africa. So we did one of our most recent investments was also in Nigeria in a company called Helium Health that does electronic medical records. And again, during COVID, this company's both role and impact has grown a lot. So they did a lot of COVID response programming that was really, really critical for the communities in which they operate.
Awesome. Good to know about that. Thank you, Amal. So next, I'd like to move to Manish. Hi, Manish. I just want to know about, as Amal shared about her recent investments, and obviously she didn't stop investing during these difficult times, and she invested into a bunch of kids. So we'd like to know what were your recent investments in the space in the last 3-6 months. Thank you.
So we are slightly structured differently.
Okay.
Utilist Capital does startup investments, but there we are more or less sector agnostic, and it does primarily seed and pre-seed. We may do at some point of time also look at pre-series A. So our focus on impact is not very high for Utilist Capital, whereas our parent concern, which is Provenio Capital, we have a very high focus on impact driven by those SDGs which we are close to our heart. So early 2020 is when we picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 SDGs. SDG number 1, number 2, number 6, 8, and 12. Wow. And these are the 5 SDGs which we felt we could make a difference. There are enough and more people working on health, gender inequality, education. We wanted to fulfill the basic needs, one of food, one of water, agriculture, rural economy, because as you know, India is a very large, has a very large rural base. Yeah. Most of them are disconnected. Most of the rural economy is thriving only on agriculture and agriculture related activities. Right. So our focus was on that. But come March and everything went into the spanner, and people lost their jobs like crazy. They had absolutely no way of making a daily meal. So all our energies and all our focus completely shifted to supporting multiple people doing different structures of activities into food. So we supported a lot of community kitchens. We supported a lot of NGOs doing food deliveries. We supported, it is, even though this is, our alignment is very close to what government has plans for and so on and so forth. We normally do not like to partner with any government agency for reasons best known to Indians. I think two of us here would know that partnering with governments comes with its own sets of challenges because of various issues, the way the government operates here. So all our partnerships are based with non-government. So some of the startups were also working in the food domain, but they are more into urban requirement they're meeting. Rural is still not very open to, or let's say, digital has not penetrated into rural India much. Slowly, steadily, it is coming into agri-tech. It is coming into some sort of online shopping, digital education, digital health, but the penetration is still very, 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 very low. We are supporting multiple activities. I think from the time COVID struck till now, primary focus has been delivery of food, ensuring as many people sleep with food in their stomach, as many as possible. Because in the last 6 months, it has been disastrous for a lot of these working families. No job, no money, no source of income. And, the activities what Julia was doing in Myanmar is the same thing, right? Suddenly you have no household income. So all our plans went into the clouds and we just had to focus on food. Now we are going back to our normal agenda. Things are slightly coming back to normal. A lot of people have regained, their jobs. They are back to making some level of earning. Now we are looking at, going back to our normal agenda. We are starting now We are supporting two clean water companies. One is providing clean water from ground, clean drinking water, and one is providing salt water to clean water. So that is for coastal regions. Amal would know that Dubai and the entire coast is full of these large machines, desalination plants. The startup that we are supporting creates a mini unit, which creates only about 200 liters a day. It is absolutely off grid, works only on solar and wind, and can support a family of a village of about 100 people or so. So those are the things that we are supporting. So we believe the basic necessities of life, if I can get that done, then everything else will fall into place. Food, water, shelter, primarily sustainable economy. If that we can do, and the other thing that is very close to my heart is sustainable production and delivery of food. So the supply chain of food, right from farm to table, improvement of productivity by water management, irrigation, watershed, and so on and so forth, right up to table. Today we do 30% plus in wet food wastage and about 15% plus in dry food wastage as of today, world over. So it's not that we don't produce enough food, it's just that it's not managed very well. And so these are the things we are looking at. And if there is a startup doing something very clearly within our defined space, we are willing to support, but we also support directly. We also have so many programs where we go direct on ground and support with all money, power, resources, everything. So this has been us. I think the last 6 months has just been food. And now that COVID is receding, jobs are more or less back to normalizing. We can look up and see what we need to be our next focus.
Right. That's really a big impact investment, I would say, that you've been doing in the last 6 months, Manish. Exactly. Everybody went downhill, no jobs, no food. And that's an awesome, tremendous job that you've done in the space. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. Next, I'd like to move to Natasha. Hi, Natasha. Please share some of the impact investments that you've done to your portfolio that you built.
Sure. So I think I'd like to start with stating that we look to invest in for-profit ventures. And something about impact investments is that you not just look at from a financial perspective of the financial sense, which most of, from an investment standpoint of investing in these ventures, but even the social impact which these ventures can bring to the society as such. And social impact will not just be limited to environment or environment in general, but even from the aspect of global issues like the inequality, the racial inequality, the gender inequality, right? Are you providing enough jobs for women? Are you empowering them? So there are a lot of other factors which you can look at from that perspective, right? So impact investments in general, if you look at companies which embrace good ESG practices, have that ESG aspect to their product or service, as a total perform better than other companies by around 5%. This is actually a study, right? So it doesn't mean if it's an impact investment, it's not for profit and it's for the social cause, so they actually do make good monetary sense, right? And in a place like India, where just 3% of the population really pays taxes, there's a huge opportunity for financial upliftment of the society in general. I would have loved to talk about the unbanked, huge unbanked population of India, but I think with the Prime Minister's Jan Dhan policy, almost it's 100%. Everyone has a bank account in India, right? But it's about providing financial empowerment to the masses, right, who otherwise don't have the resources. So one such investment which we have done is a company which is in the on-demand laundry space. And in India, you have something called the dhobis, or the dhobis in every nook and corner in residential complexes. These are micro entrepreneurs who basically aggregate from in a 5-kilometer radius the laundry requirements or the pressing and dry cleaning pressing requirements for people in the neighborhood, right? Yeah. So these sort of people who are living, who basically have tin shacks and coal iron to basically do the pressing and pressing and other things, they were severely impacted during the pandemic. And it's about uplifting this strata of the society. So with this app of ours, which is the on-demand laundry app, we're we're aggregating these micro entrepreneurs who are very unorganized. Laundry in general, 97% of the market is unorganized in India, versus if I look at a developed market like US, online organized market in US is more than 20%, right? And in India, the unorganized market it's huge, right? And there lies the opportunity to upgrade the lifestyles of these micro entrepreneurs. So we onboard these micro entrepreneurs who we call dhobis, who are well entrenched everywhere in all residential places in India. Sunny, you would understand what I'm talking about.
I totally understand.
Yeah, and we upgrade them with this app. We basically provide standardized service for your laundry requirements, something which they wouldn't have been able to do because they just do pressing in general. They don't have the equipment, machinery. They basically have tin shacks, right, with coal irons with which they iron clothes, right, to be able to provide laundry services, to aggregate demand for dry cleaning, right? And it's a good business. If I look at the GDP, if I look at the gross margins of this business, is 40%, 40 to 50% is the gross margins of this sort of a business. But to be able to onboard these sort of micro entrepreneurs on these apps where they can aggregate the demand more effectively, they increase their livelihoods by around double to triple what they were doing before, providing them insurances and various other things, right, which they otherwise don't have access to. And because of the pandemic, nobody's really going to them for anything, So if you have a professional, a standardized offering which you're providing through this app ecosystem, upgrading these sort of micro entrepreneurs who are basically wageless right now, right? So this is the sort of positive impact you're bringing, digital financial upliftment you're bringing to this strata of the economy in India. So that's one start off. The other, which I mentioned earlier once to you, was is our company called Home Capital, which provides 0%, and I mean 0% down payment financing for first-time home buyers. Right? This is one of a product in India where the housing ownership is very low in India, because if you look at the salaries, average salaries versus the cost of real estate, there's a huge mismatch. So a lot of people can't afford getting their own homes, right? So this company, and one of the major hindrances for that is the down payment which you have to give for buying your own house, right? And a lot of people don't have the means to be able to provide that down payment financing. So this company comes, it provides a fintech platform where the real estate developers, based on the customers which come to them, right, provide this lending opportunity for them, where it's collateral free, unsecuritized lending, which is offered to the home buyer, where they say, okay, fine, the home buyer puts 50% of the down payment financing and this platform puts the other 50%. And they really make this happen for this first time home buyer to be able to get their first house, right? So this is the uplift we're talking about, getting people their own house, which is a big issue in India right now. And that's where the government is also very aggressive with the affordable housing finance project, which is very big and picking a lot of momentum in MENA as well, right? So providing this fintech platform where the first roadblock which you inculcate is you don't have that down payment financing access, and providing people access to credit. So I think providing that right access to credit to these people who otherwise banks don't reach out to and offer this sort of line of support, but with a startup, fintech startup, using alternative data points and alternative risk assessment methodology to be able to give alternative credit to these guys so that they can fulfill their basic needs, basic human needs, right? So these are the sort of startups which we have invested in, and which very much fall in line with best in line ESG practices, which we embrace at a fund.
Yeah. So Natasha, the kind of investments you do, they touch my heart. Especially when you, the thing is, what we've seen, like, even though I don't live in India, but I know what goes there, especially the Dhobi society that you have. So for others like Julia and Doug, who don't know what the Dhobi society is, basically in Mumbai, I guess it's more prominent. People, obviously, there are people who would iron your clothes outside, for you. They do this job for you. You outsource that ironing of clothes that we do at home. In Hong Kong and Singapore, we do iron our clothes ourselves. We sort of have people who do it for us in India. So that's a business. They survive on that.
And they can only offer ironing, right? But with this, they can offer dry cleaning, laundry, and then they come on with something which is more standardized in service. So they just don't become like your average dhobi wala. They become something more than that, a professional service provider.
I want to ask you, Natasha, how did you educate them how to use this app?
Oh, they are well versed in using the app. I think if you look at a lot of people in urban cities, the migrant laborers and everything, they know how to navigate the app if they have to get their work done. So that's not an issue for them. So I think, yeah, it's a challenge from a rural area perspective, but I think the urban sentiment is such that everyone knows how to basically navigate an app, and most of the apps are localized to a particular to different languages, 8 to 10 languages, which cover everyone who is online. At least 80 to 90% of the target audience is online on those languages, and they can navigate that. Great. And then you have voice enabled features as well, which makes it seamless for them to interact and navigate the app. So
excellent. This is a super example. I really like the investments you do personally. Thank you. That with your audience. Great. So because we have 5 speakers, and obviously this is a very touchy subject that we are talking about, I would like to give all of you more time to speak about it. Doug, would you like to share some of the green stories that you've seen in the recent past in this space? Like, Natasha mentioned about, Natasha from Delhi, she mentioned about how she invested into this platform where she could empower this micro entrepreneurs who were totally jobless during the pandemic. Is there any stories from any part of sort of emerging world that you would like to share?
Yeah. Well, I think part of this comes back to education and getting communities to understand just manage their waste, for example, if they don't have it. So in Cambodia, where we do work, the options they have for waste is burning and dumping illegally because there's no facilities to collect it from them. So when you teach them about connecting a river to a lake and the fact that the trash goes down the river, it impacts their fishing and their tourism and their water quality, and you put up booms and nets and catchment devices, you actually see the entire river community come together now kind of as one team. And they all realize that one thing impacts the other person and the other person. And so if you can bring that kind of knowledge into an investment scenario where even if it's micro processing of that material to become something for construction material, there's new technologies that are not super high tech and big machines that could make at least mixed dirty things like concrete, acid, fuel. And as these machines probably cost $10,000, they might cost $100,000, maybe not for capitalists, but they're definitely communities, and them all benefit in a very quick way. If you then replicate that, some kind of program with 10 of these or 25 of these, then you might have some really good impacts on the investment side. Can you still hear me there?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I just missed out on some points. Is it me or is it everybody else as well? I just missed out on few points. You're talking about the food waste recycling in Cambodia, right? I mean,
yeah, mostly on plastic, but just in general. But plastic is the hardest one for most communities around the world to handle. And so the ability to be able to turn that into something of value can create a whole economic cycle in itself. And that's really what we all need to strive for, whether we're doing small impact loans or investment, anything that can help create basically reincarnating plastic. If it's not reincarnated, then it's bad because it's going to sit in the environment and impact it for a very long time because plastic doesn't go away. But reincarnating it is an entire sector of innovation and use, whether you're capturing, cleaning, you're a part of the infrastructure of the supply chain to get it. Now big multinationals around the world are facing an enormous supply chain, supply and demand mismatch because almost all of them have made commitments to use recycled for their products, and they can't find it in good quality and good volume. So it's a very interesting area now for supplying that recycled content to bigger companies.
Okay, sorry, I just had to reply to Amal. Amal, so basically, is it okay we go slightly over time? Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, Doug, for sharing that with you. I can discuss more with you offline, and we can probably discuss on another panel as well, because it is a very, as I said, very touchy topic, and we have a lot to speak and listen and hear from you guys. Just conscious of time. Julia, over to you, because you shared your story about Myanmar. Any other stories? What's happening?
I have many more Myanmar stories I could share, but I won't. I thought I'd just mention something in contrast, which is Hong Kong, which is a very ostensibly wealthy city. But of course, actually, if you know Hong Kong, and I'm sure Doug knows it very well, he's been here a long time like me, it's a city with the most enormous income inequality. It's got some of the worst income inequality in the world. So the sort of social impact which we projects and businesses which we see in Hong Kong are very different from those we might see in more rural and more developing communities like Myanmar. So for example, in Hong Kong, we would see something like Rooftop Republic, which is end-to-end use of space like roofs and so on to try to create agricultural produce from all of this spare space so that people can actually produce something to eat and perhaps sell it. But really, it's also very much a greening initiative. We've got Teach for Hong Kong, which is all about trying to encourage people to teach, especially some of the less privileged young people in our communities, so that some people will give up a year or two of their lives or possibly more to actually go and teach. We've got an organization called Run Our City Youth, which is all about encouraging children from lower socioeconomic groups to get heavily involved in sports programs and running. We've got something called Blue Sky Technology, which is about helping people to understand their utility bills and pay them more efficiently and so on. We've also got organizations which bring together arts, artists, arts, and so on in one place, really trying to enrich what is very much a business community with the most enormous income disparities. And of course, we have a huge thing about clean air here. We have massive amounts of our own pollution, and we also have a lot of pollution coming over from China because, of course, the Pearl River Delta is a highly industrialized area. So we have clean air initiatives, and something I've particularly been working on with a friend is a green bank initiative, which was something which is quite successful in the UK and in parts of the US as well, to actually have an organization which is part private, part publicly funded, which actually creates sustainable upgrades to improve the greening of buildings, the greening of the environment and so on. And there's quite a lot of demonstrable evidence that that can work and actually is a sustainable business model. However, that's a work in progress at the moment. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Julia, for sharing those examples with us and our viewers. Great examples. Thank you. Very quickly, moving over to Amal. Amal, so how to encourage more investments into the space? Because I think rightly somebody said it's not like Elon Musk, not fancy enough. So what has changed in terms of investment? Has COVID or the pandemic done any favor to this space? How can we change the mindset, to invest more into this space? With an example of from your portfolio that you can share, who managed to move into the space, if they could manage to during this time, pivot into the space.
Sure. So I pretty much really agree with what Natasha said. While we are for-profit investors, impact is embedded in our markets. The more capital you're bringing into those startups and those entrepreneurs that are solving for market needs, this is delivering great market. And I think COVID drove even more attention to that by diverting attention to sectors that were really in need of attention, like healthcare. So I think it was an opportunity to see where profit and impact do come together, because these are scalable solutions. These are solutions that are providing impact across the entire market segment, like thinking again base of the pyramid, how large these markets are, how much they're in need of innovation, and shedding light to new innovations, new technologies, as opposed to your traditional sort of investments that are just only financially yielding returns. You're also seeing returns where impact is, and that the two are not separated, but it's a matter of intention. It is a matter of also monitoring and evaluation and how you're measuring impact. These are things that are still, broadly defined, but I think it was also an opportunity to say, in this moment in time, what is a real problem to solve for, or what is a really high social impact solution here. And so, in one year it could be healthcare, other times it was financial inclusion, and not to say that, at times it will be either or. Of course, we need across the spectrum, and that's why we have all the different SDG goals. But I think COVID really shed an impact on, financial returns are not enough. We're seeing the disconnect in the stock market and the real economy, and allowing for institutions, whether it's development financial institutions or family offices or other sources of capital that are now not just looking for returns, but also looking to deliver impact.
Great. Thank you, Amal. Thanks for sharing.
I'll just take a minute. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure. I have something critical to attend to, so I'll take leave. It was a pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Manish. Thank you for joining us. And please do join us again in future. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Same here. I actually also have to excuse myself, but it was a real pleasure, and I'm really happy we got to connect and have this discussion today.
So Amal, are you planning to leave soon? Sorry.
Yes, I unfortunately have another appointment now, so I have to leave.
To ask you before you go, because you've just attended our panel for the first time. So what's your feedback? What's your thought about this sessions that we host every day? And what can you suggest for improvement?
I actually really like the diversity. I think the diversity across regions and across expertise was beneficial for me. I think it was eye-opening hearing, about the laundry business in India and about, the real estate investments. Because again, we're operating in not too dissimilar country markets, but in so you can draw from the different solutions and the different way people are addressing problems and drawing impact from there. And I really like that, there was presence from nonprofits and legal expertise and how they're viewing things from their seats, and it's a different lens and view. So that is something I really appreciated about the panel, the diversity of markets represented, and also expertise and people coming in with a different view. Obviously, I wish we had more time. So next time I'll try to schedule more time for this panel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your for sharing those. Really, very valuable for us to know those. So we have actually startups in the impact space, sustainable space. So would you like to explore them? Because you know what, I mean, you might be surprised as you rightly mentioned, Natasha has just invested into this, laundry entrepreneur. Would you be interested to explore this startup?
Absolutely. Yes, of course.
Great.
Absolutely.
Before you leave, I want to say that on our website, www.latoken.com/profiles. So we have your profile featured there. And the startups in our community are actually looking at you today, now live, as well as they're going to reach out to you via us. So you're open for exploring, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Amal. Thanks for your insights. Thanks for your time. And I would personally like to have you again on our panel.
I hope so. I hope so too. Thank you very much, Sani. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. So I just want to move quickly to other. So Julia, what's your feedback about this session?
Because I loved every minute of it. It's fantastic. I think it should have gone on for longer, as we were just hearing. It's fun and it's wonderful to meet different people, hearing such interesting things that everybody's doing. And I think this is such an interesting and diverse topic that it very much lends itself to people being able to interact, perhaps. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julia. I agree with you. I just wish it could have just gone more longer, because I was listening to each of you, your stories, your experiences. I love it, because this is something I'm learning every day as well, something new. But unfortunately, people have other commitments. We understand that and we appreciate that. But yeah, thanks for your feedback. Doug, you've also joined us for the first time. So what's your feedback about the show?
It's great, and I think it's very good to have all the different speakers, and I'd love to connect with all of them offline. If I could give one piece of thought for everyone, whether you're an entrepreneur or an investor, one thing that I think is really missing in the space that could give ammunition to making things faster, better, more impactful is to look at the net benefit analysis of projects, and not just the cost analysis, not just the life cycle environmental impact, but try to value the goodness that is being brought to that investment, because that will give you ammunition to sell it into your next investor or the next market or next client. And a lot of people really don't even think about creating that metric. So the net benefit analysis, I think, is a very important angle here that could help out.
Closing remarks from Doug. Net benefit. Thank you so much for those sharing those closing remarks. Natasha, over to you. What's your closing remarks for the show? Because we always love
a very interesting, diverse set of panelists from all across the world, literally. So as always, this is something which VCTV always brings with their webinar, and it's a great job, excellent moderation with keeping the audience and the interaction very engaging, and look forward to more such webinars.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. So finally, we've just come to the end of the show. And I just want to say that you can actually watch these shows Monday to Friday on VCTV on our website, www.latoken.com. So we are running the shows in Asia and also US times. So we cover many topics. And Natasha knows she's a regular speaker, fintech, blockchain, biotech, medtech, green tech, you name it, all the topics. So if you are interested to speak at other panels, please feel free to reach out to my colleague Carol, who is obviously sent you emails and reminders to be on the show. So she is going to connect you with the right panel. And having said that, have a good evening wherever you are. Please stay safe and stay connected, and let's meet soon. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.